Hi guys! Today I want to talk about some of the logistical challenges that I've come across when planning my around the world trip with my dog. The first one has to do with Moxie. So getting her into the US is going to be a bit cumbersome. The CDC in the States put out a temporary ban on dogs coming from high-risk rabies countries, and Guatemala is one of them. And from what I read about it, it seems like the reason why they did it is because during the pandemic, there were a lot of dogs that came into the States from Mexico and other places, because a lot of people in the States, they wanted to adopt dogs. And actually if you were looking for a dog during that time, a lot of the shelters actually cleared out because people were adopting, so there was a shortage. So they brought dogs in from Mexico, and it turns out that the rabies certificates were falsified. And so there have been a few cases of rabies in the States, and they don't want that to happen anymore, so the CDC put this temporary ban in place. So if you're coming from a high-risk rabies country and you haven't been in another country that isn't high risk for 6 months' time, then you have to apply for an import permit for your dog. In my case, Moxie, she was born here in Guatemala, and she won't have been in Mexico, which is not considered a high-risk rabies country, which is weird, right? Because it seems like the reason why they did this was because of Mexico, but I don't know. But Mexico is not considered a high-risk rabies country. So you can stay in one of those countries for 6 months and then enter the States with the appropriate paperwork. But in my case, because we won't have been in Mexico for 6 months, we'll probably only travel through Mexico for 1 month, the month of March, before entering into the States in April. I can't do the normal procedure. I have to apply for this permit. To get the permit, there's a few things that I need. Moxie needs to get a rabies titter test done, which has to be done by an approved CDC lab. And of course, there's none in Guatemala. There is one in Mexico, and then there are like 3 in the States. So that means that her blood has to be drawn here in Guatemala and be sent to the lab in Kansas. I think Kansas University or Kansas State is one of the accredited labs by the CDC that will do the test. And that process takes about, I think, 90 days. So you have to do that process. You have to get that paperwork. It has to all be approved by that appropriate lab. So that's step 1. So that's the cost of all of that hoopla to get that document. The second one is just a normal, you have to show proof of rabies vaccination that's valid for the time that when you're entering into the States. No problem, she's got that, we got that. So the other issue is that the permit is not guaranteed. They only really want people who are citizens and permanent residents, I'm a permanent resident, coming back into the States with their dogs if they're coming for new employment, or if they've been accepted to a university, or for some other urgent reason why you would need to come back to the States with your dog. In my case, obviously we run RUFFLY, and RUFFLY is based out of LA, and so we spend some time there and a lot of the time here in Guatemala. My hope is that when I apply, I can show that I'm coming back for business purposes and that they will accept Moxie. The process of this permit, it takes 6 weeks. Now I've got about 5 months left before I'm leaving on the trip, and then another month of being in Mexico before I need to enter the States. So let's do the math here. So I need 90 days in order to get the titter test done, and then I need to apply, and it'll take 6 weeks to get a response from the CDC if I've got that permit. So that's 3 months plus another month and a half. So now we're at 4.5 months. If my documentation is not correct in terms of why I'm coming back to the States, my idea of coming back because of my business, you can apply again, or you can submit additional documents for the CDC to review and approve. And that again could take another 6 weeks. So now we're really bumping up to that mark. I must say that I'm really glad that I looked at this sooner rather than later, because this is going to take some time. That's all to say that's just for the permit, to potentially get Moxie the right permit so that we could enter the States. Now the question is, where are we going to enter the States? So the temporary ban started in July, and they had like this leeway period between July and October 14th, where there were a number of different airports that you could fly into with your dog if you had the permit. After October 14th, and this ban is for 1 year, so all the way up until June. So after October 14th, there are only 3 airports that you can enter in with your dog. So LAX, JFK, and I think one more. So that means we will need to fly Moxie into the States. So one of the issues with flying with Moxie, obviously, is that she's huge. And she needs to be in the giant-sized crate, which is really only because of her ears. There needs to be like 2 inches of clearance above her big pointy ears that are not touching the crate for the airlines to accept her. There are a lot of airlines that don't accept that 700 series size giant XL crate. They basically are saying that she needs to go by unaccompanied cargo, so she'd go in a cargo plane. Fine. I'm not in love with the idea of not being on the same plane as Moxie, but they've done this many times, and I'm okay with that. The issue that I have is we are coming up from Guatemala, so that means we have to go through Mexico. Originally, we were going to cross over into Texas so that we could go to Big Bend National Park, because I wanted to really, I've never seen it and I really wanted to see it, but that's not going to happen. So here's going to be the plan. Because LAX, Los Angeles, is on the list of approved places where you can bring your dog in, the goal is going to be to fly Moxie from Mexico to Los Angeles. I also am going to fly to Los Angeles. I'm going to leave my bike and I'm going to leave Greg in Tijuana. Greg is staying with the bikes. I am flying to LAX with Moxie. If she goes by unaccompanied cargo or whatever the case is, she's going to be in LAX. Somebody is going to come and pick us up. I think Greg's dad is going to come and pick us up in LAX. He is going to take both of us, me and Moxie, and drive us back down to the border. Once we're at the border, he's going to hang out with Moxie. I am going to walk across the border and pick up my bike in Tijuana. So there I can cancel my temporary import permit, and then Greg and I can cross over with our motorcycles into the States. Once we're there, we can get Moxie out of the car, pick her up and put her back on the carrier, and then we can continue the trip. The other logistical challenge that I'm having is because we're ending in Tijuana, Tijuana has an airport. The issue is that there are no direct flights from Tijuana to LAX, at least not any that will take dogs, especially big dogs. They might take them in the cabin, but they're not going to take them as cargo or unaccompanied cargo. So I've been in touch with the brokers. That's the other piece of this, that in order to fly your pet, you need to use an approved IPATA. That's their International Pet Association Transport something. And they have a list of approved brokers that you would use that would do all of the paperwork for you so that you can, and book the flight so that they can take the dog legally into the States. So I've contacted a number of them, and the issue is that all of the brokers are basically in Mexico City. Tijuana is like up here. Mexico City is down here. That's about 30 hours on the road, or it's like a 3.5 hour, 4 hour flight. There are no direct flights from Tijuana to LAX. You have to go through Mexico City. So that's a 3-hour flight to Mexico City, and then from Mexico City back up to LAX, which is another 4 hours or 5 hours, I think. So the concern here is that our bikes and our dog and we will be in Tijuana. I'm gonna need to get Moxie down to Mexico City and fly her out of there because the cost, it's like another about $1,000 for Moxie to fly from Tijuana to Mexico City as cargo. And I think it makes more sense. I don't love the idea that she's flying. She's never flown before. I'm sure she's gonna be fine, but I'm just an anxious dog mama. I wanna have her fly as little as possible. I think the plan is gonna be to take Moxie. We're gonna either rent a car or we're gonna have a driver and take us back down to Mexico City. So those 30 hours from Tijuana down to Mexico City so that we can be at the airport there, have the broker there, they do all the paperwork, and then she goes as unaccompanied cargo to LAX, and then I fly and pick her up when I get there. Seems like a lot of hoopla, all because of the stupid CDC ban. Like, I get that they don't want dogs coming in with fake rabies documentation. It sucks that we can't go by land, and I think it was something like because there needs to be like an approved CDC staff member or something like that at the actual locations to review the dog and the documents. I guess they don't have the capacity to have them at all of the borders, which I can understand, but Anyhow, so this is what is causing our logistical issues for step one of our trip. I've been obviously looking online to see what other people are saying about if they've been getting the permits. There's a lot of great Facebook groups out there, Animal Travelers, and then Traveling with Your Dog. There's a bunch of different ones where people are providing information about what they've gone through in terms of getting the permit or not getting the permit. And it seems like they are issuing them. It does take the 6 weeks, it seems like. But obviously I'm still really anxious about it because I'm not going for like new employment or for a university course. Hopefully that they will accept my business reasons and will let us in. Because if they don't, then it's a whole other hoopla of what we're gonna do to sort of get around. And does that mean that we have to fly into Canada instead and just do Canada and then end in Canada to fly over to Europe? It just sort of puts a damper on the whole thing if we can't get her into the States. But I'm hopeful that I'm gonna have all of the correct documentation. I'm gonna go through the proper channels. I'm gonna see if anybody out there can sort of help guide me through this. If there's somebody who is a specialist in these CDC dog permits, I would love to hear from you. But anything that I can do to make this as easy as possible is really what I need right now. If you guys have any suggestions, or if you have any connections at the CDC, or if you've done it yourself already and you've gotten the CDC permit from a high-risk rabies country, I would love to hear from you. Hopefully it's gonna go smoothly and I'm gonna share this adventure as I'm on it. Thanks for watching.